And here she is. Hi, Susie.
Hello.
So we are both in California on a different side of the hills.
That's true. Your view is much better than ours, I'm sure.
Well, right now my view is on a beautiful mezzo. So, you know, I'm having
wearing the colors of the sea to make you feel good.
That's good. And I have the sea here and I have the ocean here.
Well, very nice. I have a little swimming pool back there. That's the closest I can
see that. So that's a nice place to be confined somehow. How are you living this time?
I feel really lucky. Because, you know, Southern California, the weather is amazing. I go on 20-mile bike rides several times a week. And that's my sanity, is just to get outdoors. And sometimes, I mean, you know, they say that when you're riding a bike, you don't have to wear a mask, but I do sometimes, depending, because I have a girlfriend that I ride my bike with, and, you know, she's very conscientious. So we sort of do wear the masks. And it's Peggy. You know Peggy.
Oh, Peggy. Of course I know Peggy.
Yeah.
She's amazing. Oh, great.
So
that's a perfect.
For those of you who don't know, I'm speaking of Peggy Hickey, fantastic choreographer, Broadway, opera, musicals, television, film, everything. Anyway, She's one of my best friends, and she lives about a mile from me. So we get on our bikes and we ride for, you know, most of an afternoon. And it's very good for the sanity. I'm getting more exercise now than I ever have in my life.
Right. So same here. We bought 2 bikes, but we bought electric bikes.
That's what we have.
Oh yeah. Okay. So
That's
I'm doing 30 miles.
The hills. You can't. I mean, honey, I don't mean to say this rudely, but we're too old to have to ride uphill with no assistance.
Yeah, you're actually, and I'm not going to say which year. You are 1 year older than me, so I owe you respect in many ways. And you are with your beautiful family?
Yes. My husband is here too. We're all here. And,
is he working? Can he work remotely?
No, because he's a technical director.
Right.
And so the shows that he was working on have closed. You know, they closed down. He does things like the major auto shows in the country. Like, so he was supposed to have been at the New York Auto Show. His company sort of builds and lights and does all the technical stuff for these auto shows. And, you know, 10,000 people a day going through the Javits Center, not so much.
No, not so much.
Shut it down way early. So, you know, we're all just sort of hunkering down. And can you hear the dogs barking next door?
I hear the dogs barking.
Sorry about that. His name is Elvis. Elvis, hush. So, but there's so many Emmanuel, there's so many interesting, like, little side results of this thing that has traumatized all of us. There's, you know, people are learning how to relate to each other again. And the friends that I've had in this business for 25, 30 years, we're always friends and we're always happy when we see each other. But now, because we're in our homes, we're much more desperate for that contact. So, you know, people who are now have become we've all become much closer during this time because we make a special effort to see each other. I have a group of friends who I've been singing at the Met with for 25 years. And every Saturday night at 7 o'clock, our time, 10 o'clock their time, and 4 o'clock in Hawaii, where we have some other friends, we all get together and we have this Zoom happy hour. And we all look forward to it so much because we know each other so well. We've come through the business together. We're all like family. We can say anything we want and we love each other. And those bonds are somehow getting stronger during this time.
They are. And the Zoom meeting, I usually really fear them because I have so many professional Zoom meetings, but somehow the personal ones, they are very easy. They are relaxed. And you do actually, we have a different tempo in our lives. I mean, my tempo actually in some ways is accelerating because of all the duties that we have to perform administratively to keep the ship going in the tempest. So there's a lot of waves going and winds going on.
I can only imagine, right.
And then we have to be much more present on social media too. But the phone calls,
that's a funny thing because I always joke that now everybody thinks they're Johnny Carson. Everybody's interviewing everybody thinks they've got a talk show, and it's so funny to me that during this time, why do people want to know more about our private lives now than they ever did before? That's curious to me.
They want to hear. they want to hear your voice, and this is the only way they can hear your voice. And I think we have always said, you know, in the classical world, well, we need to be more present on social media and the internet, and the screen is the second stage, and this is all true up to a certain point.
Well, the screen is the first stage now.
It is, and it's the only one. And it will continue after the crisis. I think it will continue.
I think this has been a big jump up in level for that kind of awareness.
Absolutely. It will also prove that there is nothing like a live performance and a recital. Of course, you need to lose what you have to understand the price of it. You know,
I think that's absolutely true. And I think that that our audiences, I hope, will feel that too, and they'll understand that no matter how good a microphone you might have or how good a lighting you might have, the energy exchange that we have from the stage with the audience is, you can't replicate that in no way. And a lot of my you know, when this all started, and a lot of my colleagues, particularly my younger colleagues, who are so inventive with the content that they're putting out there. I mean, you know, Ryan McKinney, a fellow Texan, you know, he's been making these like little opera films. Have you seen them?
Of course.
It's amazing. So creative and funny and technically really astute. And I just think that's brilliant. That is a level of brilliance and energy and innovativeness and resourcefulness and imagination that I have a hard time. I don't have.
So the Dallas Opera has been behind a lot of those creations, including with Ryan. And I think we are now, you know, probably the most productive company in the US with this. And we have exploded with a TDO network that we are launching now. And we have a lot of
TDO network. I like that.
Yeah. And it's really like, I mean, it's really a huge success. I am more present on social media. You know, I'm trying to multiply my numbers personally and as the music director. How do you feel about social media in general? How did you feel before? Did you have to change your mind on this?
It's a love-hate relationship. It really is. I understand. How do I say this? I understand the need for it for certain people and certain institutions, certainly institutions. I think that, I mean, there are some people who abuse it. And I think that in general, it's made everybody an expert on everything. And that's what kind of drives me crazy, because you've got a bully pulpit. You can sit there and, you know, spew forth like an expert on anything that you might or might not know anything about. And civilians do it, politicians do it, everybody does it. And it drives me a little bit crazy. And I sometimes, you know, I grew up a good girl in Texas, Emmanuel, and I'm proud of my opinions, but I'm not sure that the whole world needs to know them all.
No, but there are a lot of things. No, I totally agree. And the attention craving, the narcissism, the love me, watch me, how much skin do I need to show so I have more likes? And of course, the artificial
that's a lot of it.
It is insane, but people are interested in who you are. You know, some of our opera traditional fans and maybe new audiences, knowing who you are, might come to our art form. And it's a little part, but I really believe
it's a tightrope, though. It's a tightrope, because I can, you know, I always say my life is an open book. I have nothing to hide, whatever. But still, there's a certain amount of privacy that everybody is entitled to.
Sure.
And, you know, some people spew everything out on social media. What I had for breakfast this morning, and, you know, how many times I went to the bathroom. Excuse me for being crude. But that, you see it on, you know, people will say anything. And I got in, I mean, even Facebook, however many years ago I started with that, was just to keep in touch with people I really care about. While I'm a gypsy on the road by myself all the time. Yeah,
and it was a way of escaping our career and our stress, and now it's adding to our career stress in many ways.
Well, exactly. And, you know, I don't know if I've told you this before, I probably have, but there, you know, even for Facebook, which everybody usually just, you know, Facebook is like, you know, universal, but I get friend requests all the time on Facebook, as I'm sure you do, because, you know, people see us and then they want to friend us on Facebook because they want to be in our inner circle. And I have 3 rules for whether I'll accept a friend request on Facebook. First, I have to know your name. I have to know your name. Secondly, I would have to recognize you from across the street if I saw you. And thirdly, I would have to give you a hug and mean it when I saw you. If those three criteria are met, then I will accept you as a friend.
So how many followers do you have on Facebook? 4 or 5, with those rules?
I don't know, 600 or 600.
Yeah. But
it was very small. I mean, I kept it under 200 for years because I didn't want everybody that I sing for to see me on my bike rides, maybe.
Sure.
Now I don't care as much, but when it was starting, I was very protective. I was protective of my family and my who I am privately. I mean, I'll leave it all on the stage. You know me. I'll throw it all out there on the stage and leave it forever. But necessarily what I do after the show, I don't need to share with everybody.
Right. But you don't need this. You have achieved a status and a recognition within our business and the public that doesn't require you to be present on social media. A young artist has no choice.
They need it more.
They need it, and I think they need to embrace it, as they have no choice. They need to embrace it, with a good heart and take all the positive. And there is a lot of positive.
Because you know what the social media exposure was when I was their age? Record companies.
Right, of course.
Because we were still making records when I was their age. When I was in my 30s and 40s, I was making a ton of recordings, and they did all the PR for us. They did all the promotion.
And
they made us stars.
The status was you are a local artist, you are a national artist, you are an international artist, and then you are a recording artist. And that was, and you could even make money, figure that one out.
Imagine, you got paid for recording things.
And now people, even big names, pay to do recording. It's part of your branding. It's part of
it's true. And I tell you, going back to the beginning of social media in my life, I was seeing my colleagues, tweet out about, buy all my records, or go to see my concert at Carnegie Hall. Come on, my fans, we can fill Carnegie Hall. And I would look at that and I would go, if my voice can't fill Carnegie Hall, I'm not going to go on Twitter to fill Carnegie Hall. Do you know?
Right.
If my art can't bring people to me, why am I going to stand up on a soapbox and say, come hear me sing? If I've been singing for 20 years and that's not good enough, then I don't deserve to have those people in the room. That's part of my, I'm a dinosaur. I mean, I'm old fashioned like that because for me, the art is the most important thing. The music is the most important thing. The self-promotion, the branding, yes, that's important, especially in these days where we don't have any other outlets. But I started this business 30 years ago. And for me, everything was focused on the arts. I mean, we had managers who guided us carefully and slowly through healthy careers and didn't try to throw you out there and make you sing Carmen when you were 25. None of that stuff. I had guides and teachers and managers and people who really cared about me and my progress and not just the bottom line dollar. And to tell you the truth, it was 2008 when I think a lot of that just went and changed because people were panicked and they wanted to get money as fast as they could. And then singers were burned out in 5 years.
Right. So I think a lot of people are going to heartfully agree with you. And a lot of these people are actually not on social media where we are speaking right now.
Yeah.
And so two thoughts come with this. I think we have no other way to deal with this. We have to accept it, and we have to make the most out of it. The beauty of some of the things we are doing as a company online is that it really has an educational purpose and an awareness purpose.
And I think that's great.
And that is working superbly.
Yeah.
And so for some of our donors, important donors with whom we have this personal connection, you might even want to hug them if they are on the other side of the street.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily get it, especially if they don't have grandchildren, but they understand it's important and they are smart enough to support it. The big difficulty for us as artists is not to go in yet another wrong self in the process, and to become other people than who we really are, and see this as a validation of that crazy image we have built. And unfortunately, a lot of our colleagues just went nuts with this.
What do you mean?
Well, they all of a sudden, it becomes a whole operation. I need to post 3 times a day. I need to show that I am doing my musculation. I need to show, as you were saying, what I have just cooked. I have no more ideas. I'm having a nervous breakdown. I had only 10,000 likes and not 15,000 like yesterday. And they forget who they are.
I know, but you know, I that probably would have been me 10 years ago, because there is a level of we have a lot of, we are performers, and it's like, if you take away our audience, what are we? You know, I mean, there's a certain element of that we are in a way exhibitionists. You know, we share what's inside of us with our audiences,
and we share the gaps, the problem, the holes, the doubts inside of us. That's what is nourishing the arts. And so that vulnerability that is totally exposed and really communicated and resonating with the others, that's where it's happening. The problem on social media is that vulnerability is a little fake, and then it can drive you nuts, as I was saying earlier.
You know, when all this started and everybody was putting out all this interesting content, there was some backlash, there was some criticism. I don't know if you read it, but people saying, you know, oh, I don't know why these people are putting all this stuff out there, living room concerts, and they're just showing off. But my first reaction to that was, no, we're not necessarily doing it for you. We're doing it for us. Right. Because artists gotta art. You know, art is a verb in our world. We have to make art, and whether it's on the level that we want it and the level that you want it is debatable. But if you know, I'm mentoring the Young Artist program at the LA Opera, and so our young artists have been doing a lot of these, you know, LA Opera at hashtag LA Opera at home. Check it out. But all of them have done these living room concerts, and before the quarantine, they were able to go over to somebody's apartment with a pianist and do it with a pianist in the room. Since, you know, in the past few weeks, of course, they've had to do it, you know, with recordings or tracks or something, which is definitely not ideal. But they're doing it because they're young singers, and they need an outlet. They need to have an outlet for expression. And a lot of even not so young singers are doing the same thing. And it's for the creativity flow that if it stops, we die.
Right. So you were talking about the way you had people helping you in your career, guiding you. You were a student of Marlene Malice. I
still am.
You still am. You were a winner of the Met competition. You were in Maryland. But your career grew very naturally, but very fast and very steadily. How much of this was also your own choice and calculation? How did you cope with stardom, which is quite rare for a mezzo-soprano? And how much of this influenced your choices? How did you make your choices?
I always started with, I always had a good sense of what was right for me. And
what's that? Was it vocally? Was it dramatically?
Vocally, physically. I mean, I was lucky that I was, you know, I'm nearly 6 feet tall, and my voice is a lyric mezzo-soprano, and that spells perfect trouser roll package.
Yeah.
You know, I also grew up. I make a good boy. I play a good boy.
Yeah, but then you have to know how to go from Cherubin from Nozze to Cherubin from Massenet to Rosenkavalier. And so that also needs calculation somehow. So you were always.
It's all just very natural. It was always very natural for me because I like to joke that you know, I have 5 nephews, and they're the age range is about 15. There's about 15 years difference from the youngest to the oldest. So I watched them all grow up in different stages, and one of them I studied for Cherubino, and one of them I studied for Octavian, and I would see, you know, oh, this is how a 17-year-old boy moves as opposed to how a 14-year-old boy moves and thinks and talks and expresses himself. And I always had so much fun with that. And you know, I'm a great observer of humanity, and I love watching people, and I love figuring out little ticks. I once saw, remember Philip Langridge? He was a wonderful British tenor. I saw him do a performance of in Coronazione di Popea. He was singing Nero, and Nero was this neurotic emperor, right? And he sang the whole thing. I watched him. He sang the whole thing. This one monologue scene, kind of nibbling at a fingernail while he was singing, like in a neurotic way. And I was mesmerized by this little physical tick, this little attention to detail. And so I always looked for those kinds of things that I could incorporate into my characters. And it always was so much fun, whether it's like fiddling with a button of woman. For instance, the character I played in the Aspirin Papers in Dallas, she was kind of a little nervous Nelly old maid kind of person. And I remember sort of fiddling with the lace on my sleeve quite a bit to show her kind of neurosis. But all those things are so much fun for me. And so the roles developed very organically. And you know,
and vocally, and what does that mean vocally too? How did you know that it's the right time for this role, or I want to push myself vocally for this?
I mean, I had great guidance. I had, you know, Matthew Epstein and Alec Treuhaft and great managers, and my teacher, Marlena Mollis, who would always put the stamp of approval, the thumbs up or the thumbs down on anything that I brought to her. I always sort of knew, though, what was right for me. I knew Handel was good, Mozart was good, Strauss was good, the French music was good. It was a while before I got into, you know, I was 40 before I did Iphigénie en Tauride, which is sort of the big look piece. And it was, you know, 2-3 years after that before I did my first Didon in Les Troyens. And Didon is sort of the epitome of the big girl roles, you know, for me, for a lyric mezzo, because she's, you know, she's the queen of Carthage, and it's an epic opera and an epic role. But in terms of things like, you know, The Merry Widow, which I've done a lot, I started doing those kinds of parts after, when I started graduating from the Teenage Boys.
Right.
Because there's only so long that you can jump out a window and like in Cherubino and The Marriage of Figaro, and without hurting yourself.
Right, but Octavian, we have seen mezzo singing Octavian successfully in their 50s, you know, and beautifully too.
I did my last one just before I turned 50. Good for you. So a little of a nasty question, but you are a mezzo-soprano and you are a star. How does that feel to be a half soprano? Did you ever have any? I think I'm 3/4 of a soprano.
Okay, because you're very high too, and you're high vocally.
I'm high and I'm tall.
How did you ever wanted to be a soprano? Did you feel like, oh, you know, she's getting so much attention, what's the big deal? My voice is as interesting.
Look, I was always just happy to be at the party.
All right.
As a mezzo, you kind of, you know, you're usually the second banana or the girl or the boy next door. I always played the boyfriend to Renee Fleming. Come on now.
Right.
There are much worse jobs. There are worse jobs than being Renee Fleming's boyfriend. And, you know, Renee and I, you know, we grew up in this business together, and she is a brand, you know, she's an icon, Absolutely. She's a star. I never had any, you know, fame envy from Renee, because I've never met anyone who works harder, and I've never met anyone
very
who
smart.
She's a genius, and she works so hard, and I could never begrudge her any of her fame and success, because no one deserves it more. And I, you know, like I said, I think I always felt like, I mean, I didn't like to do little tiny nothing parts.
Right.
Although there are no small parts, only small actors or singers. But I always wanted meaty parts. For instance, I mean, of course, Rosina in The Barber of Seville is not a small part, but I only did it once because it wasn't that interesting to me. I didn't, in the early part of my career, because I was a lyric mezzo, everyone was pushing me to do Rossini. And I had flexibility, I could do coloratura. But I just didn't find it as interesting as Charlotte and Werther or Mignon, which was the first time
we did together. We did Mignon in Toulouse with a young tenor, Jonas Kaufmann.
What was that guy's name? Jonas Kaufmann? Yeah.
I loved it. It was extraordinary. So that's in terms of social status of the mezzo. You are at peace with this. As vocally, did you always know that you were a high mezzo, a Zwischenfahr? Actually, do you define yourself as Zwischenfahr at all? You keep saying lyric mezzo.
Well, you know, that's sort of the American version of Zwischenfahr or Falcon. I mean, in French.
Yeah. You never try to. Oh, maybe I'm a dramatic soprano or anything like that.
Well, I mean, look, Strauss called Octavian and the componist sopranos.
Oh, I had forgotten that actually.
Yeah. So, but I never really I didn't want to identify as a soprano, because then the expectations to sing high C's was too great.
Right.
I always thought that, you know, I always had high notes, and what I said about them is that it's a nice place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there. You know, that's how I knew I really was.
Yeah.
I wasn't really a soprano because it. I liked having the ability to go up there, and you know, for many years my party trick was, you know, floating high notes, floating high B flat. Occasionally I'm still called upon to do that, and it's not quite as easy as it used to be, but you know, it's still there. But I when I was in college, they didn't know what I was, so they would give me soprano rep one day and mezzo rep the other day. It all gelled when when it became clear what my package was. The package was lyric mezzo, trouser rolls, Mozart, Handel, Strauss. It became that thing.
Right. So you have the obvious physique to be a beautiful young man, a beautiful young boy. You have the voice for this, but you're a beautiful woman, and you could have been a Carmen. So why did you never tackle that role? I mean, you can sing it. I mean, basically, it's a woman's voice, actually. You know, it can. L'écart is a little low, which would work, but it doesn't go.
That scene is really what kept me from doing it. If you want to know the truth,
because
I was always a mezzo with no low notes. Now I have them, but nobody would hire me to sing Carmen at my age right now.
Right.
But when I was asked in my 30s and 40s, and also early on in my 50s, to do Carmen, I was asked a lot because, you know, I'm known for singing French music.
And you're superb at it, yeah.
And so
it's just toujours l'amour. That's just what.
It's not so much even a range thing.
Yeah.
It was the color. It was the color of my voice. My voice was always very silvery. Mm-hmm. And for me, when I hear a Carmen, I want more bronze. I want more bronze in the sound than I ever had when I was at the right age to do Carmen. In fact, I used to say to people, your Texas viewers will enjoy this. So I'd say, do you like enchiladas? And they'd say, well, yes, of course I like enchiladas. And I'd say, do you like Velveeta cheese on your enchiladas? And they'd say, no, that's terrible. That's terrible. I said, that would be me singing Carmen. I would be Velveeta cheese on an enchilada, because my voice is so sort of fresh, and it was always sort of on the bright side and not the smoky, dark quality that I always wanted in a Carmen. So basically the answer is I could not have pleased myself as Carmen. And even though Teresa Berganza sang it and all kinds of, you know, lyric voices, sopranos have sung it. And
I was thinking of that, and I think, and for me, this is one of the roles where it's actually possible. It's more than okay, because the personality and the character are very important, and you can probably color the voice differently. Of course, when you are in the Trio des Cartes and in this ensemble, and even in the last scene, at some moment, that strength up there comes from something that is very brown, and that's needed there. Or in the quintet, you want that balance in colors, but you would have done a beautiful.
I actually did. I did a sort of concert highlights version one time, and I had so much fun.
Oh,
it was so fun. And you know, like like I said, you know, I could probably do it now. Sometimes I see it and I go, I could do that. I should do that.
Right.
And I'm like, at this age, I'm not going to dance on a table. I can hardly get up there on the table.
Right. Well, we should do it in a concert once. Yeah, let's come on. We could have.
Why not?
Why not?
Pourquoi pas?
Exactly.
Pourquoi pas?
Pourquoi pas? So that's where I'm glad, because it's a good segue. You are absolutely superb singing French, German, Italian, so on, but you're very good, and you are capturing something of the essence of the French prosody, the rhythm of the language, the way it is articulated, and with the musicality of you know, Fauré, Saint-Saëns, and Berlioz,
and Offenbach,
and Ambroise Thomas. And the first time we worked together, your French was so impeccable, but not only the French, the knowledge of the way the language rebounds, articulates, the little shadows, the hesitation, the tension, and the release, that I started talking to you in French. And to my great bewilderment, you are actually not fluent at all in French. So how do you do this?
Well, I say that I have really good restaurant and hotel French.
All right.
I'm not going to discuss, you know, complex philosophical musical ideas in French, because I don't have that level of fluency. But yeah, I always was fascinated with the language. I didn't study it in school because where I went to school, there was not a really accessible and good French department. I studied German in school, and so I loved working in France. I mean, I really didn't even start. I wasn't speaking French at all until 1991 when I sang in Nice. And then French was around me all the time. And I was so proud of myself because I could call up the rehearsal department and ask when my next rehearsal was en français. And I thought,
that's cool. Yeah.
I'm speaking French.
That's it. Yeah.
And, you know, we all learn a lot from what we sing. Of course, we learn a lot about the languages from what we sing. And then, of course, I spent more and more time in Paris, and my French, you know, then I started sort of living in French for, you know, several weeks at a time. But I attribute my singing French Denise Massé.
Denise helped you, yeah.
Fantastic French coach from the beginning of my Met career. She was at the Met, Denise Massé, and she taught me how to, you know, it wasn't a French coaching where this is a short vowel, this is a closed vowel, this is an open vowel, this is how you say this nasal. It wasn't that. It was getting inside the language and squeezing out the double entendre, all the, and as you say, the tension and the release. I did a French operetta disc, a recording of French operetta, which is the vernacular is like street vernacular. And I looked at it on the page and I thought, this doesn't look like anything I've ever seen, because there were all the little truncated words with a little apostrophe, you know.
Right.
It was
and you cannot
like
translate those. Yeah.
It was like French slang. Yeah, and you can't translate it. But Denise was with me on that recording, and she unlocked it all for me. Just the way that the prosody of the language. And so I've always had a really good ear, and I can imitate well, and I can imagine the sound of the language. And when I teach French now, I mean, the first thing I say is, you must pretend you are French. Yes. And then you will say the words. And you must imagine in your mind that you are French, and you want to be French. So this is what you must do.
Oh my God. Vocally, what does it mean for you? I mean, do you have the same technique when you sing in Italian, in French, or in German? Do you change your vocal position?
No, I don't change the vocal position, but I do change sort of the expression.
Right.
The expression is different. For instance, in French music, I'm not a fan of employing very much portamenti, you know.
Yes, but these are stylistic. These are stylistic decisions.
Stylistically, yes. But I try to sing. I try to just sing healthfully. I don't. The only time I ever feel like, the only language that I ever feel like I'm doing something different in is when I sing in Russian, because the vowels are a little darker, and I always feel like I'm channeling like Dolores Zajic when I'm singing in Russian, because she has that dark, rich, deep sound, and I always feel a little bit like that when I'm when I'm singing Russian.
Right. You have sung all over the world. So you are a star in France, and you are considered as the epitome of the French song artist. Did you like to prefer working in the States, in the US, or in Asia? How did you feel with these different cultures, and how did that affect the way you were performing and rehearsing?
I mean, of course, to go into any culture that is not your own, especially for the, when you're young and you're just starting out and you're going lots of places for the first time, it's a process. It's a mind game, man. You have to, I mean, so many times I walked in there feeling, under-equipped,
Right.
prepared.
Yeah.
Whatever, because it's easy to regress back into, I'm just a little girl from Midland, Texas, and what am I doing in Paris, France, singing a starring role? How did this happen? But the more, the only way you can overcome that is just with experience and by doing it again and again. But honestly, my favorite places to sing are New York and Paris. It's just, Paris has just a special place in my heart, and I guess because they gave me such support and such acceptance and love, and it always just drives me crazy when people say, oh, don't take this personally, Emmanuel, oh, Parisians are so cold, the French are so cold, and I'm like, they're not actually. They're not. They just don't dig, people denigrating their culture, or, walking the streets of the most amazing city in the world asking where the next McDonald's is.
Right.
I don't like
this is another long conversation, but I spent my life in the US defending the French and the European model, and I spent my life in Europe defending the American model and the Americans. And the cliches are devastating. And sometimes we French conform to the cliche, and sometimes we Americans.
Sometimes we Americans do too.
Yeah. So, but working with colleagues now, you are a very good colleague. You are very natural. And you say what you need. And if you don't get it, you say it again. But you are a joy to work with.
Thank you.
What do you expect from a colleague, a conductor, for instance? You have worked with a lot of conductors in different ways. What do you expect from a conductor?
What I expect, or what do I want? Those are two different things.
Can you answer both? I like the distinction.
Well, sometimes I expect conductors to have a healthy sense of authority, and to be able to, and this is also a good thing, because they have to command a large group of people, and they have to command many elements: the stage, the pit, the tempo, the breath, all of those things. And what I want is someone who can do that well, and with a sense of collegiality and a sense of cooperation. I especially at this point in my life, and probably the past 10 or 15 years, I expect to have my opinions respected as well. I at a certain point, an artist who's been doing it for a long time has their own ideas, and I'm perfectly willing to collaborate. I will take information and suggestion all day long, and try and incorporate it with my own pre-existing ideas. Or sometimes I realize that, that person's ideas are better than mine. I throw out mine and I do what they want, because it's, yes, it is a better idea. I don't have any problem. My ego does not get in the way of taking suggestion or taking instruction. Especially if I respect the person who's giving it, which of course I always respected you. So it was never difficult to take any suggestion from you.
But you want, if I hear you clearly, you also want to be understood, and you want to be heard. I mean, that means, and I think that's the only way to work with an artist like you.
Well, and the best conductors are collaborative and respectful.
Absolutely. What's your tempo for Che gelida manina? Depends on the tenor, depends on the stage director, depends on the atmosphere, depends on the first oboe, you know?
And one of the things I love about working with you and other of your colleagues who are equally respectful and loving of the art form of singing is that when I look down in the pit and you're looking up at me and you're willing me to go forward with joy, and that means that I know you're with me, and and I feel safe. I feel safe that if I'm going to go faster, you'll go faster with me. If I'm going to slow down, you'll slow down with me. If I need to take an extra breath, you'll see me doing that, and you'll give me that space.
And that with me part is exactly what I am going for. Because you know I can't do Rosenkavalier if my Octavian is suffering and is going to just collapse in the middle, you know, or if I don't I don't give it. So that's for conductors. What do you expect from stage directors?
Basically the same thing. The same thing. You know, a collaboration is really what's most important to me, because at this, you know, when I was very young and just starting out, I didn't have as many strong ideas as I developed over the years. You know, I didn't have the confidence in my ideas that I developed over the years. And also I was doing everything for the first time. So, you know, once you've done Octavian, you know, 200 times, you start to get really strong feelings about what this scene is or isn't. What bothers me is when a director will, you know, deliberately go against what I think the composer intended or the librettist intended, and just do something that's completely upside down from what I think the story really is.
So I totally understand what you say, and I've worked with so many directors who actually were just going through the piece and learning the piece as it was going, which is absolutely impossible. You need to be aware of all those lines going in different directions.
It's helpful if they read music, for instance.
Right. And I have seen a few of them who don't read music, but were very sensitive to the music, you know. But I must say, you know, what you call in the US Eurotrash, which is crazy shows where the director on purpose goes against the story and wants to make a crazy point, sometimes can be interesting too. And then I don't call it Eurotrash. I mean, I've worked with Ruth Berghaus, for instance, on the Rosenkavalier. And I don't know if you have ever worked with Ruth, but she was one of those people who would really try to go against the tradition very strongly. And we rehearsed it was with Deborah Polaski. I was the assistant, and we rehearsed the first scene of the Rosenkavalier for 3 weeks, if not 4 weeks.
What was it like?
It was extraordinary. She had
but what was the idea?
Oh, the idea was, I don't know what the idea was. She was searching for the idea, and it was working in many ways on a psychological point of view. But what happened is that after 3 weeks, all of a sudden the dramaturge of the company came in the room and started laughing and laughing and laughing, because what they have written is funny. You know, the piece is funny. And Ruth Berghaus was so furious. And she said, oh, someone is laughing. It's laughing at my staging. That means I'm doing bourgeois staging. And she scratched everything, and she started from the scratch.
Oh
and
my
from
gosh.
the beginning. But those rehearsals were fascinating because she understood the piece very well. She understood the connection between the libretto, the music, the time in which it was composed. So when she was going against something, she knew what she was going against.
Yeah.
She had analyzed it. And so those directors usually are very interesting. In the end, the result was not so interesting because she had sucked the life out of the piece during those, you know,
that's the danger.
12 weeks. But it was absolutely fascinating to me. And I have seen very traditional stagings that are absolutely understanding what the librettist wanted, the composer who are trying to bring the best out of the performer, but because there is not that slightly angle that shows the shadows, that twist a little things, so you can see them better in a different light, it can be very boring, you know. So, and I personally like, you know, a little edgy staging. I know that as a music director, when we program those, we're taking a huge risk, especially in the US.
Well, it depends. I mean, you know, like you say,
Right.
it depends. It depends on whether the intent, what the intention is, and if the intention is clear, and has some, at least on some level, meshes with what the story is.
Right.
And there are many ways to tell a story, and I do understand that.
Yeah, yeah. We're arriving already at the end of our conversation.
Oh,
but
no.
what are the roles you would like to sing today? What are your plans, and what are the roles that? So that's a friendly question, and you can push it aside. What are the roles that you didn't sing ever, and that you think you should have sung but you will not sing now?
I was just thinking of one the other day. What was it? Oh, Niklaus. I never sang Niklaus.
Oh, you would have been an amazing Niklaus.
I know.
Oh my God, especially with all this new material that we keep finding every week, you know?
I think when I was asked to sing Niklaus a couple of times, and I wasn't available, and then for some reason, I don't know, without the viola aria, it didn't seem like there was enough to do.
You have to push for the viola aria then if Niklaus of your stature. Any other roles?
Well, I would have liked to have sung Tosca, but it wasn't in my range.
We could have made it work, you know?
No.
Yeah.
I used to sing Visi d'Arte at parties.
Wow, how would you deal with the very last high notes? I mean, you could stretch it enough.
Yeah, whatever.
You could make it. Yeah, whatever. The right answer. The right. And what are the roles you still want to sing? What are your plans now?
Well, you know, it's interesting because in the past few years, I've taken on roles like, you know, Clairon in Strauss's Capriccio. I was meant to be just finishing up Herodias in Salome.
Which is I think it's a great choice. I mean, you can sing this for the next 20 years, and you're going to be amazing at it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm singing Geschwitz in Lulu, and which is also a good fit for me vocally. You know, I do Dead Man Walking when it's, you know, from time to time. The part of the mother, you know, I created the role of Sister Helen.
Of course, yeah.
Dead Man Walking, but after, you know, I do Flicka's part now, which is the mother, which it's a great role. It's a great role. I don't know, you know, I'll do all the roles that Jake wrote for Flicka.
Yeah.
You know, he wrote a lot of roles for Flicka, you know, in her later years, and if I can get her to bequeath those to me, maybe I'll get to do some of those.
All right, I'm sure she would graciously extend, you know, the CTU. You're teaching.
She's my spirit animal.
You're teaching quite a lot now. Do you enjoy the teaching, and how do you articulate that with the career?
Well, I'm a sort of adjunct faculty member at Texas Tech University, which is my alma mater in Lubbock, and I teach a couple of weeks a semester there. And I teach the young artists here at the LA Opera, you know, coaching and interpretation, things like that, mentoring. And I think it's great because at this point I've been doing this for, 30 years, and I've just learned a lot. Yes. And I love imparting my old-fashioned musical values to this younger generation, because a lot of times, you know, they're in a hurry. They're all in a hurry, and they want, I think that sometimes some steps are skipped. And so I go back and I drill them on their French and on their German, and I don't let it go until that vowel is perfect. And, you know, that's a full-time job, because language is everything in what we do. Language is, I mean, and tone and expression and voice and acting.
But that's the language too. That's part of the language.
So especially with my college students, I love bringing sort of the real world outside of Lubbock, Texas standards to these kids who may not have ever seen a professional opera before live, you know. And I love, I have seen them grow this semester, this year, I mean, this school year, which is just now ending. From September to now, I've had 5 students that I sort of shepherded through, I tortured, who I love all of them. And they grew exponentially because they saw a standard that was up here and they all rose to meet it. And it was insane. It was fantastic. It was one of the most gratifying things I've ever been a part of. They were really amazing. And
we learn by teaching. I mean, this is so true. You have to conceptualize things, you have to articulate things. But by the way, how can I explain this? And then you get smarter and better yourself.
Yes, exactly. And it has made my singing better.
Right. Well, that's extraordinary. And do you have faith in that new generation, although it wants to go too fast? Do you think because there's this talk, we don't have any more tenors, and people with the opera is finished. Not true. No, the crop of singers that we have at LA Opera this year is phenomenal. Phenomenal. They're just, I'm so impressed. I could not have begun to do at their age what they're doing now. Well, Susie,
I'm encouraged.
So am I. I'm very optimistic, and as we were saying at the beginning of this talk, our industry is going to change, but we are going to go back stronger, energized more than ever.
We just have to get a freaking vaccine, because I hate teaching like this. I have to teach on Zoom, and it makes me crazy. The technology is not yet caught up with what our needs are in this moment.
So I think it's Brownlee who was saying he was already teaching a lot on Zoom, so he knows how it works. So he was not so fazed by this new way. But you need to have the resonance here.
I need to be in the same room, because a lot of my teaching is cheerleading and energy. And when they get it right, I'm jumping up and down and hollering and screaming, and I think it's great, and I'm so proud of them. And I get really enthusiastic with them. And I think that's part of that energy exchange that we were talking about earlier with the audience. I have that with my students too. And that's really what I miss.
Well, and that's why we love you. You're an extraordinary artist, a beautiful human being. And let's do that Carmen in concert, or that Electra or Salome too on stage together. I would love to. Lots of love to you.
I miss you.
I miss you too.
Maybe when all this is over, I can come and see you in Malibu.
Yeah, when the house is rebuilt.
Yeah, okay. Mwah.